So, Time to Wake Up is currently your flagship game that you're working on. How would you describe Time to Wake Up?
Time to Wake Up is a first-person psychological thriller where you're stuck in a dream and need to get out. That's like the basics. There's a voice in the game that basically tries to be your companion as well. And yeah, your main mechanic is blinking. Blinking is thinking, blinking is remembering what happened. Basically, so as I told before, Time to Wake Up takes place in a dream filled with school memories, and the blinking basically helps to remember what happened in the past, and it also provides clues as to how you can go from the current level to the next level, basically. So it has this twofold structure of it basically moves the story, and it offers some clues as to how you can solve the current puzzle.
So, is it reliving a traumatic event in the past?
Yeah, the traumatic event in the past is only one element. It's all taking place in the school areas, like the hallways, the school library, the playground, etc., etc. And where we basically we basically as developers try to tie a nice story around it, around this cool mechanic that will change as you progress throughout the game. Like with the hallways, it will basically restructure your surroundings, and then in the library it will reset all moving elements, and then with the playground we have something fun in mind as well, that you will see with the next trailer.
Nice.
We wanted to create this game because at first I was like really obsessed with this notion of dreams. Like, how does it come that I haven't seen this a lot in games yet? And yeah, because it started as a school project, so I wanted to focus on dreams. I wanted to focus on this moment where you want to run away in a dream but you can't. So I made this really basic, ugly hallway that keeps on extending as you walk through it, like as if it never ends. And that was basically the start. And then I started asking myself questions. Okay, what else are we going to experience in this dream that is like mind-blowing visually, but also satisfying because you're grasping to something that unfolds to a story that is interesting, is captivating. At least that's what we're going for. So yeah, that's out of all the games or game experiments that I tried in school, it was the one thing that I saw. This is like, it has potential, and it's a bit of me. Like this is the literature philosophy guy, basically asking for a game.
Yeah. And so you wanted to explore dreams. Do you place a lot of value in the meaning of dreams?
I think, like, if there would be a way to revisit your dreams after being awake again, it would be so cool. So is it meaningful? I think not necessarily, because like if you look into the theory of dreams, experts have different opinions on what a dream actually is. But mostly refer to they're just these experiences in which you hallucinate, and some things from the back of your mind come back in there. You might see people you have just seen the last week or last year or even 10 years ago, and it's so random. It's not something you can deduct something truthful about it, other than that it's an experience in which you hallucinate. But I do think that dreams have something creative, something unpredictable. That makes them interesting, I think.
Is it also what you try to capture in your game, that sense of unpredictability, absurdity, that kind of experience?
That's what we try to do as well, to give this a surreal feel to the game. To basically make you as the player remember what's happened, and sometimes you will remember things in a different way that sometimes doesn't make sense.
You also work a lot with liminal spaces. How would you describe a liminal space?
Liminal space is basically an empty space that otherwise is filled. Like, to give you an example, when you look at liminal spaces, it's like this hotel hallway, and like it's normally it's filled with people going from their room to the hotel entrance or vice versa. And when it's empty, it has this haunted feel of it. So that's what I understand of liminal spaces. It's not necessarily like a narrow space, but a space that feels weird just because it isn't occupied by a certain amount of people.
Yeah, indeed. Like in your high school that you created, it feels very empty. But then you also introduced characters. Does that go against the notion of liminal spaces and the feeling you wanted to capture?
No, because the liminal spaces was like a starting point, because I really didn't want characters in the game, but at some point I thought I needed them, so we basically tried to do something with simple shapes, and now we have simple but effective characters. This idea, when I was studying literature, there was this idea of, okay, how did civilization start? People sat around a fire, what did they do? And then when I studied literature, it was like, yeah, they made sounds, right? To communicate and to talk. So what I'm doing, what I'm studying right now harkens back to what happened at the very start. And now with the idea of play, studying DAE, studying game development, you're like, yeah, I'm developing games, which is really meaningful because it harkens back to maybe what people did around the fire. They did not only try to talk, maybe they were talking about the rules of a certain game that they were playing. Like, hey, yeah, you can do this in this game, but you can do that, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense because in your game specifically, you also try to go back to core feelings. The human aspect is, I think, very important to you.
It is.
So that's also a very primal feeling that you're trying to harness.
Yeah, basically, we start. Alan is someone, yeah, who's suffering, right? He can't let go of his past. But yeah, then throughout the dream, he will travel back to past school memories where he will need to find clues as to how he can improve his life. Basically, that will be the bigger picture. And then, yeah, like the Too Long Didn't Read is literally like, yeah, he's stuck in his past, and he finds a way. He gets to the root of it, and then he might, if you play it well, you might find a way to basically make Alan better again.
Still on the literature and philosophy, has that helped you in your current career as a game developer?
I think to a certain extent it has helped me, but then more in terms of the way I think more. I think like if I would have studied literature, or if I wouldn't have studied literature, if I would have immediately gone to DAE, I might have been like equally skilled in game design, programming, art maybe. I don't know how much of a difference that would have made if I went a bit earlier in there. But I might have got to know the tools, but then, okay, what am I going to do with those tools? And because I already studied literature, I could try to define what I liked about it, like what of all the books I've read, what journeys do I like to read the most, and why? Is it because it relates to me in a personal way or not, or do I feel like it relates to a lot of people? Because now we live in an online world. You can read YouTube comments filled with, this happened to me, this happened to me. Sometimes it's joyful, sometimes it's sad. And yeah, Time to Wake Up, it was a really, it grew into, I don't know how to say it. It starts out with an obsession. Like it's hard to know what I can say, what I can already tell, what I can't. But there's this idea of obsession that was like very, let's say, specific, and then you go back. Then so at some points you need to go back to the fundamentals, to the basis. Okay, what bigger emotions are we experiencing here? Is it loneliness? Is it sadness? And basically, if you can name things, it helps. But on the other hand, naming things also destroys the very things you're naming. Like words can be cages, and if you allow people to put things in a box, then sometimes it's hard to get them out of that box as well.
So you want to create a certain amount of ambiguity, room for the player to interpret what you're serving him? Or
to some extent, yes, but like it will be very clear what has happened, but to what it if you would ask players what does it mean, then like there's room for interpretation, right?
Literature, the written word, is a way of translating narrative emotions in a very straightforward, literal way.
Mm-hmm.
Is it much more difficult to translate narrative feelings in video games?
I do think it is, because if I would write a book, I'm going to give that book to you, and you would basically have to go from chapter 1 and chapter 2 and chapter 3, etc., till you're at the end. Okay, you can also structure a game in a very linear way, but to some extent you want to offer players some freedom, some room, and from the moment you give them room, they might not go from one point of the room to the other point of the room, to the other half of the room. They will maybe do a bit like this. Like you have people. That's the thing, right? You have players that go, whoop, they beeline it, right? And others are like, I'm gonna look around a bit, gonna read a bit, and then okay, this is a vibe, and then okay, now I will proceed. While you don't have that same room with books. You read this sentence, then this sentence. It's So you have a lot of control as an author, but as a game designer, there's so many things you need to think about, because if you, like also with art, if you make this a bit too extravagant, or the color is too saturated of this element, they might be attracted to it, and they will try to interact with it, but then they can't. They're like confused or frustrated even. But it's you really need to think about, okay, what is going to be the center of attention here in this room? What do I want players to do? What do I want players to experience?
So in video games, as a video game developer, you have an inherent lack of control, but through those focal points, you still try to instill some control over the experience.
Yes, that's what we try to do indeed, yeah.
But I guess your goal is to instill a certain feeling within the player.
Mm-hmm.
Then why choose video games as a medium where you inherently have less control than in written word or in movies?
Because that's a difficult question, but a short answer is I didn't want to write a book because I know nothing about the publishing side of things, because I know meanwhile I know that you don't write a book alone. You need to get it out in the world as well. But I also didn't want to be the only one creating something. Like I can write a book myself, and I could feel satisfied about that, certainly when people leave positive reviews, but in the end I will have done it alone. And it's very refreshing and rewarding to do it with a team. And that's why I'm really grateful not to be alone anymore as a game developer.
You had have found that alignment with your current team?
Yes, because I'm a weird guy. Colleagues I have are a bit weird as well, and if it's the same level of weird or the same kind of weird, then there's some interesting discussions to be had as well, and then collaboration.
And you also mentioned a definition of success. You, for yourself, know what you want out of life. Is it also discussions you have with your team members to align your vision?
Yeah, I think not enough. I think I should talk with my team a bit more about those deeper goals, let's say. But I do mention it from time to time, but not like consciously we're gonna have a meeting and talk about our vision and mission, like not like that. But I sometimes do talk about what I think defines our company and what things don't define our company. Like okay, we're gonna make weird games, but how are we going to stand out from other weird games, right? And from now on, it's like we say, okay, eye-catching gameplay, tell relatable stories in worlds brimming with atmosphere. For some that might be too vague, for some that might be too specific already, but for us it works just fine.
Also, in terms of success, do you have a shared, aligned vision for what success looks like for a studio? Yeah, I think I should talk more about the team about that, because for me it's very clear. For me, it's first of all staying alive. Like if God would tell me you're going to be successful the rest of your life, but you're going to stay with 3 people from start to finish, I'm still happy. If I can grow, of course, I'm also happy. As long as everyone on the team is happy as well, because I know the road, the journey, it's a tough one, it's a long one, it's a strenuous one, but I hope it will be rewarding as well. Your day-to-day life probably changed a lot since you took on additional team members. Do you ever miss working by yourself?
Not really. I think it's really nice to be able to have a backlog filled with tasks that get done. Because back in the early days, I felt like there were so many distractions, but also necessary stuff to handle, like emails, and sometimes there's events that you need to go to, and if you're on an event a full day, that's a full day that your game gets 0 progress. And also but more importantly, maybe there's no other person to vent about stuff. Like you can, there are other startups here in Ham Arcade, and I can complain about this or just tell something about that, but only people in the team will fully understand, or at least have a very much better understanding of what you're talking about. I see AI as a tool that has no intent, no intention. It just does what has been asked. And I think you should always involve people, right? Otherwise, like even if it's pure recreation, you should do it in a manner that it's monitored. Like, does it check the boxes that it checked back then? And AI, I can see it as something that can maybe play a part in like the early phase, like the really early phase of game production. But I think the ways of, like, there's not one way to do game development, of course, but there are already, like, outside of AI, there's already so much you can do, so many ways in how to enter pre-production, like schedule, brainstorm. Like my question is, okay, what benefit can AI bring without destroying jobs or without ridiculing jobs? Because the fear that I smell right now is
artists becoming art managers, programmers becoming program managers, so that they basically just look at what AI did and then they do like this or that. And I think, yeah, that's like a factory job, right? Which I want to prevent as well.
Do you think that the skill part of development of being an artist contributes to the artistic vision, or do you think that AI as purely the means of doing the skill-based activities could also still end up with that same vision, artistic vision?
What you see when you work with an artist instead of with AI is nuance. And they can understand nuance. They like sometimes when from the couple of times that I use ChatGPT, and it's already been a while since I've last asked a silly question or a grammar question sometimes. Like it responds like, "Sir, yes, sir," like a toddler, and it will present you with an answer that is as smart as it can be, and then it can be right quite a few times. But when you're creating something like a game with there's a lot of nuance with it. You don't want like an image where everything is saturated, or like that's the thing with like Midjourney. How do you recognize if it's AI or not? It's you can, if you most of the times or as of late I can see it's AI. And it's becoming harder, so that's the scary part. But at the start, you had really this use of lighting, and this how would I say, this inconsistency. Like you want to, an artist, you want to create this balance of, okay, we focus on this, we make this saturated, make that brighter, you make it come together. But AI can sometimes really provide flat art. When you see, okay, there is no intention, there's no nuance in here, you can recognize it. And also when you're making a game, you want, for instance, like a school environment, you want a blackboard or you want a school bench. Like there's some going back and forth on how you want it, and just being able to point at the screen like, hey, I want this very element to be thicker or have another color. I don't see how you can achieve that with AI at this point, nor would I want it to achieve with AI. I think like games made for people by people, I think it should stay that way. Especially when you have when you're making a game, it's like you're making a baby, and if you can make it with other people, I think it's the right way to go. That's maybe the weirdest answer ever, like having babies with AI, but I think that's how I see it.
So even if AI were able to capture your vision perfectly, you would still prefer to work with your artists in your team?
I think I would be astonished, but I think I would feel empty inside if AI could basically make the game. Like, what am I here for anyway? And then we get again in this philosophical debate of why is it still meaningful that I make games, which is a bit how we started this conversation as well.
Yeah.
So I think if AI could make games like perfectly as I envisioned it, you can basically have a discussion about, okay, what role do I still play? Yeah. But I don't think we're there yet. But I'm like, I want to see them try, because there's so much like the emotional aspect, like that must be like the really most complex thing, the single most complex thing for AI to achieve. And as long as I don't see it, I don't believe it. Like, I believe what I see. And you can speculate all you want about AI, but yeah, just wait till you see it, I think. But I'm not scared at this point in time. Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I've seen a lot of AI generated videos, and the thing that always gives it away is, as you say, little nuances that are often related to emotions, a face expression that isn't exactly the way it should be. Um, and I wonder if in the future that will change, if it will become better at that, or if AI, something that is inherently sentient or not sentient, if it will ever be able to capture emotions as well as humans are able to do. Do you think it will ever be able to capture those emotions?
Uh, yeah, that's basically speculation again. But yeah, there's this movie with Robin Williams. Like I think it was like Biosentinel Man, where basically a robot becomes a human being. Like the robot, it's like this robot that came out, and you could buy it in the store, and it would enter the homes of families. And at first, that robot would be, making dinner, doing all kinds of chores. And the movie is basically about this one robot wanting to understand people at a deeper level, to the extent that the robot wants to become a human. And I think if we ever get to that point, it's an interesting discussion, interesting debate to have. Like, from what point do we consider something human? Like we're born as people. We are automatically people. We're automatically human beings. But is it possible for something that wasn't human at the start to become human? And then we can have this whole debate about what does it mean to be human. Yeah, but that's again a whole other debate. Like, will we ever get there? Maybe, maybe not. Interesting topic though. But at some point, like those are interesting ideas. But most of the time, I'm like, yeah, I just want to make games, man.
You also mentioned that you prototype or playtest a lot of prototypes. What has been the response so far?
It's so far it has been positive. We just need to look out, like with the onboarding, that everything is clear from the start, that people don't get confused as for the story delivery, which is a tough nut to crack. Because you expect people, you want to deliver something at a certain position in the game, but if they had some time to go around the room, then they might not follow. Like the art of writing is also the art of saying enough, but like just enough and not too much, because people need to be able to follow it, but you also don't want to be too much on the nose, like ram this idea to their throats. No, that's not how you do it. You just need to suggest and be subtle enough about it.
And that's something you try to test through playtests.
Yes, like I asked, like we have this local playtesting event, Meet and Play, and when they have stopped playing, like especially with Time to Wake Up, I asked, okay, what did you play? What do you think it meant? What do you think your role was as a player, etc., those types of questions. And I think at the start it was really like confusing as hell. But I always ask, was it fun? And most of the times, yes, the answer was yes. It was like it's hard to put their finger on it, but they always thought it was most of the times they thought it was fun.
Where can people find information about Time to Wake Up and I Blinked Twice?
On our Steam page. If you want to know more about the game, you can find us on Steam.
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the interview, and good luck with your game.
Thank you very much.
How? Oh, Alan. How did we get here? This crappy apartment, this endless spiral of stuffing yourself with junk food, doom scrolling, and never getting out of this dang birdcage. Everything used to be warm, and I was the sun. But now, ugh, I shudder to think. Will I ever see the sky again? And he's off. Sleep again. Alan Malone. Who are you? Who are you to leave me in your messed up head? Again, nothing I can do. Not one thing to make you notice me. Hey, if you're there, please. I can't do this alone. Come here. Huh? What's going on? You're here? I did it. You're here. Oh, I could really use your help. Your eyes, to be exact. Memory is a bit foggy in here, but your sight is fresh, and we'll lift it. Ready? Of course you are. But first, a deep breath. Look out for any hazy spots, and blink. All this mess because of all these books. One book you loved so much it became your friend. Tom. Tom took over our life. You weren't even allowed to keep him around. Not a single copy. Okay, stop. You hear me? I'm done with your books. I'm done with your obsession. I'm done with Tom. Sorry, I got carried away there. Now that you're here, let's finally get rid of him. Together. Trust me, we'll be doing ourselves a huge favor. No more reading his books, and more leaving your room. Well, if we can find a way for you to wake up, that is. But first, we need to find Tom. In case you didn't know already, you're fast asleep, dreaming all of this as you go. You're in control, kind of, but you're the key to tracking him down. Try to focus. Where did we first meet Tom? Let's start there. I'll help where I can, but remember, I'm counting on you.